everyone, welcome to another episode of Forward Gettysburg. I'm your host Aaron Smith, and I'm coming from you from the Bloody Angle, the site of some horrific fighting on July 3rd, quite clearly the climax of the Battle of Gettysburg. I'm here to talk to you today about some of the action that took place here, some of the stories that happened here, some of the men that fought and died here on both sides. It is an overcast day today at Gettysburg. There is a solemn feeling over these fields today. It really is quite eerie, and I mean that in the best way possible. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. Really excited to talk about the Angle and Pickett's charge and the action that took place here on July 3rd. So posted at the Angle at the beginning of July 3rd is going to be the 2nd Corps, 2nd Division, 2nd Brigade under Alexander Webb. We're talking about the 72nd Pennsylvania, the 71st Pennsylvania, the 106th Pennsylvania. They're going to be at the Angle. The 69th Pennsylvania is going to be a little bit forward of the Angle. The 71st is actually going to start out a little bit forward of the Angle. Sorry, I apologize. This part of their regiment is going to be forward at the Angle. Another part is going to be back, tying in with Arnold's cannons, who are going to start to withdraw as the Confederate attack comes on. And I can see it pretty clearly today, but looking across the field, we're looking at about 3/4 of a mile to a mile away over there on Seminary Ridge, where these Confederates are coming from. And we're talking anywhere from 12,000 to 15,000 men in Kempers, Trimble's, Pettigrew, obviously Pickett's division. This massive assault coming at us on July 3rd. Of course, July 1st, the Confederates drove the Union soldiers from the field, drove them through town. They reorganized at Cemetery Hill, later reorganized around Culp's Hill. July 2nd kind of ended in a stalemate. The Confederates put up a good fight on the Union left. They were able to take some positions, but overall the Union line held. And here we are, July 3rd. Robert E. Lee still thinks that this is his battle to win. He says the enemy is there and I intend to strike him there. We have attacks on the right on Culp's Hill that didn't work, were unsuccessful. We had attacks on the left that were able to drive in that 3rd Corps, but the Union were still able to hold their position for the most part. So Robert E. Lee says, well, if I attack them on the right, I attack him on the left, I'm going to attack him in the center. He must be weak in the center. Behind us would have been the 2nd Corps under Winfield Scott Hancock, the hero of Gettysburg. So like I said, we're going to start out around the 71st Pennsylvania. That's their monument right there. Interesting thing about the 71st Pennsylvania, they actually came in as the 1st California. The man who raised their brigade had ties to the West, and he wanted to increase sentiment with those in the Western territories and the Western states. So rather than his Pennsylvania brigade, they called the 1st California, and they saw action at Ball's Bluff. Another interesting thing tying into Ball's Bluff is the 1st Minnesota, who put up a very good fight, lost 83% of their men, stopping Wilcox's brigade on day 2, just about 200-300 yards to my left, south of us. They also are going to be posted in this general area behind the copse of trees. So this isn't the first time these two regiments have seen each other. Now at Ball's Bluff, of course, the 1st Minnesota was more of a scouting party the day before the battle proper happened, but nonetheless they were still there with the 71st Pennsylvania, which was the 1st California at the time. So they're going to be posted here in the far corner of the Angle. Next to them is going to be the 69th Pennsylvania. Further on south were the 59th New York and the 20th Massachusetts, and later on the 1st Minnesota. A little further back here, we're going to have Alonzo Cushing's battery. And along with batteries, with Cushing's battery, we're going to have Webb's brigade there. Of course, all these units are a member of Webb's brigade, the 71st, the 72nd, the 106th. But then the 72nd Pennsylvania is going to be posted just behind that battery over there behind my right-hand shoulder. So the Confederates are going to lift off their assault. They're going to march somewhere in the vicinity of a mile across open field. Of course, we know that before they marched, we had the huge cannonade from Seminary Ridge, led by E.P. Porter, or E.P. Alexander. Of course, his middle name is Porter, but that's a little redundant. But he's going to lead and fire off 150 cannons starting around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This cannonade is going to go along go on for about 2 hours. It is the largest cannonade, the largest artillery bombardment in the Western Hemisphere at the time, the largest in North America ever. And that's going to go on for 2 hours. These men back here, they're going to be under assault by the artillery shells of the Confederates. Now, most artillery shells are either going to go over and end up in the back of the line, hitting that area where George Meade's headquarters is, the Widow Leicester house. A lot of those shells are going to go back there and hit them. A lot of shells aren't going to explode. Of course, we get into the Borman fuse. Whereas the North had this great factory, this great industry, the South was relying on only a handful of factories, if that, and this huge cottage industry. So it created a lot of disparity in the standardization for their fuses, for their ammunition, stuff like that. So this artillery barrage is going to happen. And the initial reaction from Henry Hunt is going to be to fire back. And they're going to fire back, and they're going to do some damage to the Confederates. However, there becomes a discussion between Hunt and Hancock. Hunt wants to stop the barrage on the Union side. He wants to save the ammunition. Hancock says, no, continue firing, continue firing. I want my men to be uplifted in spirits, and we can only do that by the sound of our own gun. We can't just have our own men be barraged by the enemy and expect their morale to remain high. So it becomes this argument. By the time they figure out that argument amongst themselves, we have the Confederates lifting off, pouring out of those woods just behind the camera there. They're going to pour out of the woods 15,000 men. To give you a sense of scope at that time, that would have been about 6 times the population of Gettysburg at the time. That would have been about 2 times the population of the city of York at the time, the next largest metropolitan area. We are talking an entire city's worth of men pouring out of the woods, marching to their fate here. And they're going to aim for the copse of trees, the infamous copse of trees. That is going to be their aiming point for this assault. Cohen's battery is going to come into place on the other side of the copse of trees there. There's going to be some Massachusetts boys there as well later on during the fighting. I'll get to that very shortly here. So the 59th New York and the 69th Pennsylvania, they're going to hold this stone wall. Eventually, the 71st Pennsylvania, they're going to start to fall back. They're going to leave Cushing's battery unsupported. Cushing's battery is going to kind of be in this small plateau field here at the angle. You can probably see it over the camera there. I'm not quite sure, but that's Cushing's battery. So these men are going to fall back in line with the rest of their regiment that are running along a stone wall here along this ridge. They're going to fall back. The Confederates are going to hit their line. The Confederates, Garnett and Kemper, they're going to breach the line, and behind them is going to be Armistead. Garnett's Virginians, Kemper's Virginians, Armistead's Virginians, all under Pickett's brigade. They're going to smash this line. They're going to drive through and hit Cushing's battery. Cushing is going to go down. Cushing's going to die. And so now we have Fugger taking over for Cushing, and those guns are going to be silenced. Those guns are going to be captured by the Confederates. What is going to happen is the 69th Pennsylvania, there's going to be an order to retreat, or fall back. The 69th Pennsylvania, all but one company, Company F, is going to get that order. Company F is going to remain. All the men of Company F are either going to be captured, killed, or wounded when the Confederates smash into them. Now, the entire Confederate assault, you have to imagine, the Union is just shelling them and tearing them to pieces. Limbs flying off. Once they pull off, they're very easily within solid shot range. So you have to imagine cannonballs rolling like bowling balls at incredible speeds. They could roll on the ground, take out the limbs of horses, take out the limbs of men. If they were aimed properly, they could bounce off of the ground like a stone skipping on a lake or skipping on the water, and it would just take out rows of men. And this is just a terrible, terrible cannonade that the Confederates are facing. So much fire from the Union artillery, and then they'll slowly get into shelling range, which is those explosive rounds, and the shells will start to go off and explode and it's essentially like bombs going off in the air, spreading shrapnel everywhere, taking out men, injuring men, taking off limbs. You know, if a shell were to hit a horse or to hit a person, it would be absolutely devastating. And then once they're within that 200-yard range, that's when the canister is going to start to be fired. And the canister is essentially taking your cannon and turning it into a shotgun and firing, double-aught buckshot right out of the cannon into the men, and it just has devastating results. Entire rows of men are going to be mowed down, and yet these Confederates are still going to have the bravery. They can still see victory within their grasp. They're going to continue their advance on this position. About 100 men are going to breach this wall. Armistead, one of them. Armistead is going to grab, as the story goes, he's going to grab one of Cushing's batteries. Lewis Armistead, he's going to be shot. Let me make sure I get this right. Lewis Armistead is going to be shot in the stomach. He's going to be shot in the leg, and he's going to be shot in the arm. He's going to die 2 days later. General Garnett, he's going to be shot off his horse. He also will die. Colonel James Hodges of the 14th Virginia, which is part of Armistead's brigade, he's going to see a gap in front of Cohen's battery, which would be directly down this way to my south. He's going to see a gap. He's going to charge that gap. Cohen's battery is going to deliver a devastating fire of double canister at 30 feet, at 10 yards. Double canister at 10 yards. That is... Double canister itself is an incredibly devastating weapon, incredibly devastating shot to use. So we think of single canister, which is just the single shot of shotgun pellets. This is like loading up 2 rounds worth of shotgun pellets and shooting it out of the cannon. It's just, the air is so thick with lead that nothing can survive it. It's horrifying to describe it. It's horrifying to imagine it. And these men of these Virginians of the 14th Virginia, they're going to be mowed down at essentially point blank range, 10 yards. So we're talking about, you know, between the numbers on a football field, to give you, to kind of put it in perspective, that these men are going to be mowed down. Just absolutely devastating fire, absolutely devastating. 100 men of Armistead's 53rd Virginia will come over the wall, and the small group of rebels are going to make it to the copse of trees. This is going to happen in Colonel Arthur Devereux of the 19th Massachusetts. He's going to see this. He's going to see this position start to fold, and he's going to turn to General Hancock, and he's going to say, "See, General, they have broken through. The colors are coming over the stone wall. Let me go in there." And Hancock, never one to mince words, never one for proper expressions of the time, a man with a bit of a sailor's mouth, but in the army, he's going to turn to him and says, "Go in there pretty goddamn quick." The 19th Massachusetts, the 42nd New York, and the 1st Minnesota, who just the day before charged into Wilcox's brigade and lost 83% of their regiment, they're going to charge into the maelstrom occurring at the copse of trees. And that's going to be Hall's brigade that those men are under. The small number of rebels that made it to that copse of trees, they will be captured. As that's going on, Gates and Harrow's brigade are going to move in on the Confederate flank where Kemper is. Garnett, Armistead, and all those brigades that reach this angle, that reach this stone wall, that reach the copse of trees, they will be driven back. Of course, we have more action with Wilcox on the right. We have some more action happening down here. Of course, we have standards of Vermonters, but this area right here is probably going to see the most intense fighting. If you've ever been to the Visitor Center and you've seen the cyclorama painting by Philippetto, I will be really impressed if I got that off the top of my head. I think that's the artist, but that's what this scene depicts, the Pickett's charge. And I cannot stress to you how hallowed this ground is, how incredible it is to stand here to this day and look over the fields and think about the sacrifice that these men made. It's humbling. It makes you realize the price of freedom in our country it makes you realize just how terrible and gruesome and bloody and senseless in a way that the American Civil War was. These were men from Virginia, men from New York, men from Pennsylvania, men from Minnesota, men from Massachusetts, men from Tennessee, men from Alabama, each side fighting for what they thought was right. And I've discussed with several friends who work for the Park Service and our guides, and the one thing that we all talk about is each man was fighting for what he thought was right at the time. The South thought that this was the new American Revolution, that the North had betrayed the Republic that the Founding Fathers had set up, whereas the North, they were thinking that the South was destroying the Republic and destroying the Union. And it's just, I cannot express how humbling it is to be here and stand here on the fields that these men fought and died over that afternoon in July of 1863. It's a moving experience, and it's what makes every trip to the Gettysburg Battlefield special. I can't tell you how many thousands of times I've been here. I've grown up just down the road. I went to college here. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been to the battlefield, and I walk away with something new every single time. You really need to get out here and experience it for yourself. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's a little bit of a shorter video. I just want to kind of get a quick one in. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.